Power, Money and Influence Inside Epstein's Library of Control. A book therapy long-form documentary. There are many ways to understand a man. You can study his actions. You can examine his relationships. You can trace his money. Or you can do something far more revealing. You can open his books. When investigators entered Jeffrey Epstein's private residencies, they found something strange. Yes, there was wealth. Yes, there were documents. Yes, there were names. But there was also a library. A library that didn't read like the collection of a casual thinker. Not like the bookshelf of a philanthropist. And not like the reading of a businessman. It read like a strategy bunker. A masterclass in power. A syllabus for domination. A blueprint for understanding and manipulating human systems. Epstein wasn't studying science, as the public often assumed. He wasn't reading about philosophy, as he liked to pretend. He was studying something darker. Wealth. Control. Corruption. Secrecy. Elite networks. Psychological leverage. Political warfare. Tonight, we step into that library. We pull each book from the shelf. We open the pages he studied. And we uncover what can only be described as the architecture of power itself. Let's jump into the books without any further delay. First book of Money, the unauthorized biography. Money is the oldest magic trick in human civilization. It is a belief system disguised as metal. A religion disguised as numbers. A story we all agree to participate in. Money, the unauthorized biography unravels this illusion. It teaches that wealth is not material, it is fiction given weight. In this book, Epstein would have encountered ideas like empires rise not through armies, but through debt. Currency survives because people agree to trust it. Money is a tool for shaping reality, not reflecting it. The value of $1 is only as strong as the story behind it. To a man whose own wealth seemed to materialize out of nowhere. This book wasn't just history. It was validation. Here, money becomes a weapon. Here, wealth becomes manipulation. Here, value is whatever you can convince the world it is. This book doesn't tell you how money works. It tells you how money controls. And that theme, control, appears again and again in Epstein's library. And next comes Just Money, a look into the moral blueprint of finance. The one Epstein studied carefully, then quietly stepped around. It is almost ironic that Epstein owned Just Money, a book about moral finance. It speaks of transparency, justice, ethical lending, community-based banking, economic fairness. Everything Epstein's world was not. So why was it on his shelf? Because this book describes the world as it should be. And men like Epstein study such books to understand the world as it can be exploited. Ethical banking is predictable. Predictable systems can be reverse engineered. When a system is transparent, you see where influence must be applied. When a system is moral, you see where pressure points exist. When a system is fair, you can identify who is naive. To Epstein, Just Money was not inspiration. It was reconnaissance. A map of rules he never intended to follow. And then we arrive at the book titled Medici Money, a study of how wealth becomes political power, a playbook Epstein seemed all too eager to learn from. If Epstein had a medieval fantasy, it wasn't castles or knights. It was the Medici. The Medici family wrote the manual for modern banking, political infiltration, and long-lasting power. They financed popes. They installed family members into governments. They used patronage to control public opinion. Medici Money reveals their formula. 1. Rewrite financial rules. 2. Tie elites to your wealth. 3. Place allies in key positions. 4. Control information. 5. Use art, science, and culture to appear benevolent. It's the first dynasty that weaponized credit, alliances, reputation, secrecy, leverage. Epstein, obsessed with legacy and influence, would have seen the Medici not as history, but as a roadmap. A guide on how a single financial lineage can shape nations, steer politics, and control narratives. This chapter in his library isn't just history. It's aspiration. Next comes the Panama Papers, the world where the ultra-rich turn themselves into ghosts. A disappearing act Epstein understood better than most. Money has a second world, a shadow dimension where ownership vanishes, accountability disappears, assets dissolve into secrecy, power becomes invisible. The Panama Papers exposed this world. A global system of shell companies, frontmen, offshore accounts, and disguised wealth. This book maps the loopholes, the architects, the secrecy jurisdictions, the anonymous trusts, the legal fog that shields the elite. Epstein's finances were famously opaque. Offshore accounts, unnamed partners, mysterious trusts, unexplained real estate, money that appeared without origin. Reading the Panama Papers isn't the act of a curious citizen. It is the act of someone studying the architecture of hidden power. Someone who wants to understand how to move in the shadows, how to disappear assets, how to exist without scrutiny. To read this book is to study how the world's richest people become untouchable. And Epstein was obsessed with that word. And then comes the book The Dictator's Handbook, revealing the cold, brutal formulas that run every power structure, lessons Epstein could not ignore. Among all the books in Epstein's library, this one may be the most revealing. The Dictator's Handbook teaches one principle. Power is predictable. Power is mathematical. Power follows rules. Not moral rules. Structural rules. It argues that leaders, whether tyrants or democratically elected officials, survive by rewarding key supporters, controlling resources, creating dependency, keeping rivals weak, exploiting fear and loyalty. This is not a book about politics. It is a book about leverage. Epstein lived by these laws. He cultivated powerful allies. He created dependency through favors. He used secrets as insurance. He ensured he always had something someone needed. He never appeared useless. In this worldview, morality is irrelevant. Only utility matters. And in Epstein's universe, everyone was a piece of utility. A tool, a connection, a bargaining chip, a shield. The Dictator's Handbook doesn't teach cruelty. It teaches calculated survival. Which is exactly how Epstein operated. Next up is the book named Fire and Fury, where chaos becomes a political weapon, a strategy Epstein would have studied with keen attention. This book exposes the internal warfare, rivalries, and factional battles inside the Trump administration. To Epstein, this wasn't gossip. It was intelligence. A guide to psychological traits of powerful actors, weaknesses within elite networks, points of leverage, personal battles that could be influenced or exploited. It shows power not as a solid block, but as a battlefield. And then we find the book named Devil's Bargain, a deep dive into the mechanics of populist influence, insights Epstein seemed intent on mastering. This book reveals how fear, anger, and targeted messaging can shape national opinion. Epstein financed institutions, scientists, influencers, thinkers. He recognized the power of narrative long before social media weaponized it. Devil's Bargain would have shown him how to steer public perception, manipulate emotional triggers, understand political momentum, identify who truly pulls the strings. This is power through storytelling. The same currency money is built on. Next comes the book Unhinged, a study of the fragility of loyalty. a lesson Epstein could observe in both politics and personal alliances. This book demonstrates that loyalty among the powerful is always conditional and always vulnerable. It teaches that scandals reshape alliances, secrets create leverage, fear governs obedience, loyalty collapses under pressure. To Epstein, a man whose life revolved around secrecy, this book was not entertainment. It was confirmation. Next up is Kushner Incorporated, exploring the rise of a modern American dynasty. A case study in wealth, ambition, and influence that surely captured Epstein's attention. This book details elite networking, family power accumulation, backdoor influence, international political deals, financial political interdependence. The Kushners attempted to build a dynasty through real estate, politics, global alliances, strategic marriages, financial influence. In other words, they attempted to do what the Medici did centuries earlier. And Epstein was watching. Studying modern dynasty building through the lens of ancient dynasty building, informed by financial dynasty building. These books weren't random. They were a curriculum, a masterclass in systemic power. Through every page Epstein read, through every story of money, power, and influence, one idea repeats itself like a shadow in the corner of the room. Understanding systems is power, and knowledge is the master key. Every book in his library was more than a story. It was a lesson in how the world bends for those who know its rules. Now we step back. We have seen the titles. We have opened the pages. We have walked through the lessons. But when you line these books together, something far more unsettling appears. It was never about curiosity. It was never about education. It was about architecture. Epstein studied how money is created, how money is idealized, how money corrupts, how money hides, how dynasties use money, how leaders maintain power, how empires collapse, how political factions tear themselves apart, how elites protect themselves, how influence is cultivated, how loyalty is engineered, how secrecy sustains authority. This is not a library. This is a manual. A step-by-step guide for how to rise, how to stay, how to manipulate, how to protect yourself, how to remain untouchable. Every book fits into a system. A system he was studying. A system he was navigating. A system he believed he could master. After a lifetime spent reading, collecting, and studying the world's secrets, the question that lingers over Epstein's library is simple, and yet profound. Did all this knowledge shape him, or reveal the shape of the world itself? So we return to the central question. Did Epstein read these books to understand the world? Or did he read them to understand how to bend it? Was he a student of power? Or an aspiring architect of it? Was he learning from history? Or attempting to repeat it? Was his library a collection of ideas? Or a set of tools? In the end, the books tell us one thing. Epstein was not interested in money. He was not interested in science. He was not interested in society. He was interested in control. And his library is not a portrait of a thinker. It is a map of a man trying to position himself at the intersection of wealth, secrecy, politics, psychology, and power. A place where only one thing matters: influence. And the ability to use it without ever being seen.